Wonderful. Okay. So thanks for that. We have just been talking about a different kind of fund. Let's dig into a mutual fund more specifically. Let's start with my handsome younger brother. We're going to have to start finding some different pictures because these are from several years ago. Adam has no hair, he's got a beard, doesn't look this happy anymore because the years of uni are starting to weigh him down. But behind the face, the grizzled face now, it's still the same brain, and he's a very smart guy. And he knows what a good investment is. He's often, when we're having discussions about these stocks, he's got some really good insight. And let's say that he's been investing and saving and has managed to pile up a couple of piles of cash. Now, Chris and I, let's say that we are not quite so good at investing, but we've been working for longer, so we've been able to save a bit more. We've been dabbling around with trading or whatnot, but it's not quite working. And we know that Adam's got his lead path strategy that's working well. So we say to him, hey, you've got brains, we've got cash, let's make this happen. And we ask him to use our money and grow it through his investment strategy and give us the returns. He thinks about it and he goes, fine, but I want some of the extra returns I make to come to me. We agree, seems fair enough. And he goes away for a couple of years and doubles all that cash that we've given him. So looks great for him. He's gone from having 2 piles of cash to having 16. But he has to remember that not all of that is his. A lot of that is our initial money plus the returns that are owed to Chris and I. So a couple of years down the line, we come back to him and say, oh, fantastic job. Thank you so much. We'd like our money back. And he goes, no worries. He gives us back our original 3 piles of cash plus 2 extra. But he keeps a bit for himself. Some of that return that he's keeping is actually money made from our money, but it's his commission for doing a great job with his investment. And this is the basic idea of a fund. Pooling money and you getting one individual person to invest it for you. Mutual funds themselves started way back in 1774 as the first rough idea of one. A Dutch guy called Adriaan van Ketvich started it, and it ended up failing after 30 years. Similar investment vehicles popped up in Switzerland and Scotland, so that works well for all the members of our group. We're well placed here. But they didn't really amount to much, and they weren't long-lasting. In 1893 in Boston, a fund that invested in property mainly came up in quite a similar structure to mutual funds, but only invested in property. And in 1924, the very first modern mutual fund started, MFS Investment Management, actually also in the Boston area. And it's still going today under the same name. What are these funds now? I say it's the first modern fund. What do they look like? Well, mutual funds specifically are where a bunch of people have pooled their money together. It's managed by a group of people, tends to be one main manager and a series of assistants. And they invest in a whole bunch of different stocks and equities and different other funds and any financial instruments they choose based on their own strategy. That money tends to be pooled from a variety of different sources. It could be anyone from retail investors like ourselves, all the way up to other funds who can invest in funds as they choose. The advantage of it's supposed to give you a professional management style, someone who knows what they're doing with portfolio management, for example. If you think back to the talk we had from Gabriel a few weeks ago, or a few months ago now, he talked a lot about different ways to set up your portfolio, and it was very maths heavy and quite difficult. And that's something we're still not very good at. In theory, these professional guys should know all of that. They've taken the courses for it, they've done the university degrees, they should know how to best manage it. The funds, like any other stock, pay dividends and appreciate in value as the stocks that they own go up. This on the right is actually a picture of a portfolio that's managed by a woman named Kathy Woods, who is a very big name in recent times. She's done very, very well over the last year or so, and her fund is up, I think, something like 80% or 90%, something ridiculous. So you can see that she's got a bunch of investments in things like Tesla, Square, Roku, lots of names you probably know. Now, what are the advantages of mutual funds? Well, funds in general offer more advanced portfolio management, as we talked about, from people who should know what they're doing. They allow you to automatically reinvest your dividends without excess cost, which allows you to really grow your wealth at a much more rapid rate. We've talked a bit about dividend reinvestment in the past with Adam. And because they're quite well diversified, they should reduce your risk. If one company drops and you've only invested in that one company as an individual investor, you could lose everything. Whereas in theory, these funds are more broadly diversified, and so one stock doing badly should be counteracted by another stock doing well. It is essentially the epitome of convenience, hassle-free investing. What are the downsides? First, let me preface this with, I don't particularly like mutual funds, and Chris actually disagrees with me on this, so you can ask him about his views on it afterwards if you like. But I'm going to tell you why I dislike them. For a start, they charge an expenses, a management fee, and that can range from anywhere between 0.5% to 2.5%, but the classic one is 2%. What effect does that have on our investment? Well, first let's look at just if we invest in the market. So this is a graph showing if we put £10,000 into the broad market and it gave us 8% per year for 50 years, we'd end up with just under £500,000. Not bad. That will start you on a nice way to retirement. Now, I said that the management fees for a mutual fund tend to be about 2%. Doesn't sound like a lot, right? Well, if we add that into the compounding effect that interest can give us over time, you would end up with only £180,000 if you put that same £10,000 into a mutual fund. That is a huge, huge difference over the long run for just that 2% extra management fee. Now, that's the case if the mutual fund actually manages to match the market in its returns. But the vast majority of them don't. I think the stat is 96% of mutual funds don't even match the market in returns. And there's a few reasons for that, but they basically come down to what are the incentives of these money managers? Well, they get paid for having money under management. They take a 2% fee. So if they're managing £1 billion worth of funds, they get to take home a cool £20 million every year. It doesn't matter how well the fund does or not, they just get to take that home automatically. Now, because they get a 2% fee, they get more money if they bring more money in. There's two ways they could do this. They could grow the assets, but that's a lot of hard work finding good stocks and good investments. Or they could just convince more people to put their money in with them. And that way, they'll be able to take more of a paycheck. And that leads to them making bad short-term decisions. They try and compete with each other on a quarter-by-quarter basis because that will make them more attractive to investors. That means they sell stocks when they shouldn't, they buy stocks that they shouldn't. They do things like selling stocks that are down just before the tax year ends so that they can offset income in the next year, even though that stock that they sell might be a great investment. All sorts of horrendous things that end up reducing their return in the long run. Another thing to consider is, from a point of view of a mutual fund manager, what happens if they miss a great stock? If they didn't invest in Tesla when everyone else did and the price shoots, they look terrible. They're probably going to get fired by their shareholders because their shareholders are going to go, what were you doing? Why didn't you know this was the next big thing? But what if they don't invest in something that loses out? Well, no one even notices. Doesn't mean they didn't make a great decision, but they don't get rewarded for it. Whereas if they do invest in a stock that crashes, well, they can just point to everyone else who's also invested in it, lost a bunch of money, and say, no one could have known, not our fault, and there's no consequences for them. What can we take away from this? Well, I think mutual funds are a big pile of trash. Chris disagrees, as I say, so ask him about that afterwards. I think that once in a while, someone like Warren Buffett or Ray Dalio, Peter Lynch or Li Lu comes along, someone who can genuinely beat the market regularly, and they are someone who's worth having your money. You could give your money to them and they will genuinely provide value for them, even after the management fees that they'll surely take. Otherwise, it's just likely to cost you money. I was actually discussing with Chris beforehand, if we look at that same portfolio from Cathie Wood, I think if we look at all the stocks that she's got in her portfolio, these are ridiculously overpriced companies that don't have a lot of backing at the moment. She's done very, very well in the end of a big bull market, but I think we're going to end up talking about her the same way we do money managers from the dot-com bubble. People who were doing fantastically, getting thousands of % in returns, and then lost everything in a matter of years. For us as Lead Pass investors, it comes back to the same thing as always. Do your due diligence, know who you're leaving your money with, and really, really consider if there's not a better investment you could put your money somewhere else. Does anyone have any questions with that?
Hi there. Thank you so much for watching our video. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please let us know in the comment box. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can learn more about our channel. Thank you very much, and see you next time.